So the AEP program is there for your child and your family to improve your English as quickly as possible and then join the mainstream.
哎呀，静姐，我觉得这个老外啊，整天讲这个英语加强班，但是他自己中文都不会。
对啊，用中文的方法学一学哦。
啊，他自己都不知道。
哎呀，你说我不会说中文吗？
我今天在学校认识了一位新朋友，他的中文呀，简直让我太吃惊了。他说的可不是老外的中文哦，是一非常标准的普通话。Ian， 非常感谢您今天能接受我们的访谈。
谢谢您。
我希望您做一个自我介绍，让我们更多的家长认识您。
我可以用中文或者英文
都可以。
好，所以一边说中文一边说英文可以吗？
Okay， 可以的。
So my name is Ian Smith. I'm the Vice President of Language Acquisition for Taylor Schools. I've been working in education for over 20 years, and for the past 15 years, I have been designing and leading academic English programs, first in China, then in the United States, and most recently Singapore. So I'm very excited to be working now in Malaysia and working with the Taylor Schools Group to develop high quality, impactful academic English programs for our students.
Ian， 我看到您今天的一个报告，就是20年主要集中聚焦在做孩子们的英语的语言提升这个项目上。那其实我看到您应该可以胜任更多的职位，为什么一直非常热爱这个阶段呢？
这是很有意思的故事，因为我开始我的教育的专家在中国。So I finished my master's degree in the year 2000, in the year 2002, excuse me. And my first job after completing my master's was in Dalian, 大连，很漂亮的城市。
是。
所以在那个大学，我教美国历史，还有美国政府。是。对，所以这是我的第一次工作在教育，在那个大连，在大连。And during that experience, education became my passion. And it was something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
看到项目的设计呢，是从我们孩子们进入到英语体系里面，要从学习英语到用英语学习，到能够学习生成英语这3个阶段。那么这3个阶段，您的课程是怎样实现的呢？
这是很有意思。因为这3个方面是很重要的，在学习英语，还有所有的语言。So the 3 elements, the 3 dimensions of academic English learning, the learning of the language, which is English. So you have to know the fundamentals. You have to know the grammar. You have to know the vocabulary, how to speak using the language. Okay, so that's the most fundamental aspect. But in our program, those 3 elements are not being done all one at a time. They're all being done at the same time. Okay, so we don't spend time just focusing on grammar development. We don't just spend time focusing on how to present or how to interact with your classmate. And we also don't just spend time focusing on how to think in English. All of those elements are happening at the same time. Okay, so we're creating environments in our classrooms where children and students are unknowingly absorbing the vocabulary because they're using authentic English to communicate. Even if it's at a fundamental level, even if it's at a basic level, they're using the vocabulary to talk about science. They're using the vocabulary to talk about math. They're using the vocabulary to talk about world events. And so in the process of talking about the topic, talking about the subject, they are building the foundation of their English ability. And it's almost happening unconsciously because they're practicing every day. They're practicing using real English contexts. So we create the environment for them to use real discourse on how to, for instance, explain a phenomenon in science. And through their own explanation of that in very simple terms, in very simple way early. They're building that capacity to understand. And therefore, all of those three elements that you just mentioned are happening at the same time. And if they're happening at the same time, that means that what we see in the research and what we see in our classrooms is that they make progress much quicker. But if you take them apart individually and try to just teach grammar, or try to just teach vocabulary, and then just teach presentations, and then just teach them how to think in English, all of that, the process slows down. So you try to recreate an authentic learning environment so that all three of those dimensions are happening at the same time. And that's how we get tremendous progress in a short period of time.
Yeah. Okay.
So in other EAL classrooms, what you find is many of those elements that we talked about, those three dimensions that we talked about, are split up. And in that case, what ends up happening is that you're not creating a real authentic academic English environment. So what we are trying to accomplish with the program is we know that our students' ultimate goal is to go to the mainstream. They want to go into those classrooms with other native English speakers and other high proficiency students. And the only way that they're going to be able to thrive in that environment is if we create those conditions step by step. It's not good enough to just throw a student into a mainstream class and hope for the best. And a lot of schools do that. And they have varying degrees of success in terms of building the capacity for academic proficiency in English with those students. Some students may thrive in that environment, but the vast majority of students, if they don't have that foundation of those three elements, those three dimensions that we talked about, then they will never be able to fully grasp the curriculum. And therefore, not only does their English proficiency slow down or decrease, but their understanding of content also slows down and decreases.
今天看到项目里面有一个学习英语的一个三角模型，但是我没有看明白，叶，你帮我来解释一下呢
？Thank you for that question. And the three-teacher model is something that has been evolving since I started teaching English 20 years ago back in China. And ever since I started leading academic English programs over 15 years ago. What I began to discover very early on is that the three-teacher model is like the perfect construct for a cohort-based academic English program. And why is that? It's because whenever you put content area specialists, a math science teacher who is an expert in that field, a humanities and literature teacher who is an expert in that field, if you put those two teachers together and then combine into the tripod, into that triangle, a language acquisition specialist who knows the theory, who knows the practice of language acquisition, who knows how to get the most out of a content class. And you link that person up with content area specialists who also happen to have certificates or maybe even advanced training in EAL or TESOL or have had tremendous experience. You put those three things together and suddenly all of that theory that we talked about, all of that foundation, those dimensions that we talked about come to life because those three teachers are not working in a vacuum. They're not working in silos, okay? And that's what you see in a lot of schools is that you'll have a science teacher here, a math teacher here, EAL is way over here. Or you have a humanities teacher here, math teacher here, and EAL is way over here. EAL is done, at another place, probably in another part of the school. And then sometimes those students go into mainstream classes and they're looking around and they don't know what's happening. But what I have seen through my own research and then also through experience is that if you take all those parts and put them all together so that those three teachers, those three experts are communicating every hour of every day, of every week, of every month, of every semester, suddenly there is no gaps between what is expected of the child to learn. There's no gaps in terms of how the teachers teach English, because the language acquisition specialist is going into those classrooms and having conversations with the math teacher. Said, I was looking at your lesson today, and I think if we adjust how you taught that lesson just a little bit, like make the language just a little bit easier here, maybe stretch them a little bit further, you're going to get better results. And so, and I've seen the outcomes of that. So if you put all of those elements together and you put them in close proximity and you make a team out of that tripod, they become a functioning unit. They become a self-correcting unit because they're helping each other. And they're also talking about practice. They're talking about, well, I had a lesson today and it just didn't quite go according to plan. And then they can have a conversation with the language acquisition teacher about how to improve that. So if you put all those three things together, you get much more, a much more vibrant academic environment within that teaching community. And then that spills over into the classrooms, because the students will see that they have three teachers that care about their learning deeply, that understand their learning deeply, that know who they are as learners in a very visceral way, because they have the experience. All three of those teachers know every single one, all 48 of our students inside and out. They know how well that they can speak. They know where their problems lie, and therefore they're able to come up with an effective approach to look at where the problems are, look at where the potential improvements need to be focused, and then build them up.
因为我看到我们的整个报告里面，我们的老师的配置呢，大多数会至少2语或者是3语的老师配置。为什么会这样考虑呢？
In my experience, teachers that have had their own experience with the trials and tribulations and the difficulties of learning a foreign language, if they have that experience, they have a built-in empathy for the students that are in their classrooms. And so the first thing is that I want teachers that understand how difficult it can be to learn a language and understand and know how to talk to the students about how to manage the difficult process of learning a language. So that on a basic level, that's what I'm looking for. Now, is it necessary? Not always necessary to have bilingual or trilingual teachers that are teaching in a program like this. But from my experience, what I've seen is that it helps a lot, just in terms on a very basic level, being able to connect with the young people that are in our program, so that they can have someone that has gone through that experience and knows how to work through the very difficult process of learning a language. So that's on a basic level. I think that naturally, because I've also 我学习中文在中国，所以我遇到很多的困难，就是压力很大。So you want to find, you need to find those individuals that have also had that experience, and so it makes it easier to communicate. Now, where we are in this part of the world, it pays tremendous dividends to have members of staff that can speak Chinese. I've seen it myself. It pays dividends to have members of staff that can speak Japanese.
Yeah.
And so when you have members of staff that can have profound, deep conversations and important conversations with mom and dad about the nature of their child's progress, it cuts through a lot of static that may exist between school and home. And so what my job has always been, since I've done most of my teaching in this part of the world and also work very closely with Chinese students, is that if you can shorten the distance between school and home, if you can create avenues of discourse and communication between school and home, that you get such a richer experience as an educator. You feel like you are making a more profound impact on the students' progress beyond just their ability to communicate in English, that you are making real lifelong connections with the culture. You're making lifelong connections with those families, and that stays with you. And that's what really motivates me and keeps me doing this year in, year out, is that I know that I'm going to be able to have those conversations with moms and dads who are really looking for a lifeline. They want someone that can talk to them and understand what they're going through. Because it's a big step to move from China, from Japan, from Korea to Malaysia, to invest in your child's education. It's a big task, and I don't take that lightly. And so I invest in myself, and I make sure that my staff are also invested in that journey, and that they understand the trials and tribulations of moving to a new country to get an education, but also learning in English, which is no small feat and a very difficult task. So we need staff members that can shorten that distance between school and home.
这个太好了，我觉得能够意识到家校沟通这部分的内容，我觉得对于我们的家长来说也是更多了一份安心。那我同时又想问，那么学校怎么样跟家长来去沟通，然后告知孩子目前的整体的进步和进度呢？
对我来说，我想这是最重要的方面。
是的。
因为我们的家长已经投资很多的时间还有钱，
金钱，
对，所以他们很关注
孩子的成长，
孩子的进步。
是。
So because I have worked very closely with families, and because I have 20 years of experience listening to families' concerns about their child's progress in acquiring English, and the question is how long until they're in the mainstream. And so because it is such an investment and it's such a high stakes environment for a family, they've invested a lot of time and money in the program, and they want to know what is the outcome. They don't want to wait. And then some programs, that information is not as readily available. And sometimes that progress report, the time between progress reports, in my opinion, can be quite long. And that's a lot of time for parents to be wondering, my child is going to school every day. They seem to be happy. They seem to be making improvements. I'm not quite sure how or why it's happening. And because I've heard this experience from parents over the course of over 20 years, I put together what I think is a solution to this problem. And it's on a RAG continuum. So it's a very easy shorthand. We have 9 colors across, or 9 shades across 3 colors. Each one of those colors represents a language acquisition rubric, a content mastery rubric, as well as an approaches to learning rubric. And so what that does is that it's a checklist that says your child has met this expectation, they have met this expectation, they're still working on this expectation, they've met this expectation, and therefore, because of all that, they're at red 2. We make that decision. The 3 teachers working as a team, the tripod, come together every Thursday in the afternoon, and they sit down with a roster and we talk about each one of our students. We talk about how well they're progressing in their classes, what are their areas of growth, how well they've done on certain assessments, and then we put all that together, and then we use the checklist to determine if they're ready for the next color. We put that into an email. Each one of our 3 teachers is an advisor. So they have 16 students that are in their care. They are the direct conduit, or the direct connection between home and school. And so that advisor will send home that email with the RAG color, with the checklist, with 3 areas of excellence and 3 areas of growth, as well as if there's any additional concerns. And what that does for our families is that it puts them, again, it's all about shortening the distance between home and school. It means that the parents have up to the minute understanding of where their child is on their trajectory towards graduating from the program and ultimately going to their mainstream class, which is the goal. That's what they're all working towards. And then my philosophy is I don't want to keep a child in my program 1 second longer than they need to be in that program. The only way that we can do that, the only way that we can ensure that the child is making the proper progress is if we get down to the micro level, we get down to the granular level. And some schools, some people will say that that is an overload of information. That has not been my experience. In the 8 years that I've used this RAG approach, this weekly email approach, I've received nothing but compliments and praise and gratitude from families because now suddenly the mystery is gone. Where before it might have been 1 month, 2 months, maybe even a whole term before they knew how much their child has progressed, suddenly they're getting up to the minute, up to the week understanding of how much their child is progressing towards their goal. And again, that shows that we take the investment that the parents have made in their child's education, we take the investment that the child has made in our school very seriously. And so we want to make sure that we are giving the necessary, the requisite feedback that is commensurate with that, that is equal to that investment every single week.
那么按照这个逻辑来，我们是怎么样设计这个课程的呢？
So there are two elements. We have the online, which we've already launched, and students can start joining in the next couple weeks. And then we have the on-campus here at AISM. So the two programs work together. Okay, so when part of my experience working with international school students and international school families is that oftentimes that process from an inquiry into a school, the application to the school, and then ultimately a spot in the school can take many weeks, sometimes many months. And in that process, the child may or may not be in a well-functioning, appointed, well put together English program. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. It's a big gamble. And so in my previous role, I thought that's a major gap that we're missing out on. That's an opportunity to create even more community with our families. That's an opportunity for us to, again, shorten that distance between home and school, and also create opportunities for those families to be in the orbit of the school sooner rather than waiting before they're in the country or the first day of school. And so with all that in mind, we put together a 10-week academic English program. So students that are interested in joining the AEP program, they have to go through the application process. If they are indeed interested in joining AEP, but they know the visa process could take some time, or it may be several weeks before they're able to come to Malaysia and join the school, they can join our online program for those 10 weeks. And they can study with one of my favorite educators, someone that I've been working with for the past 8 years. She was actually one of my first hires at a previous program that I ran in Singapore. She's an Australian working in Australia online, teaching in the online program. And so these students that decide to join the online program will get access to our teacher. They will have access to the videos that she produces, and then also access to a couple of our really important online English acquisition programs that can help build capacity in terms of literacy as well as grammar and basic English foundation. In my experience, those students that take the opportunity to do that 10-week program, in some cases, they can end up graduating from the AEP program quicker because they are being introduced to the program earlier. They already know how the school functions. They already know how the systems work. They already know how the curriculum looks. Okay, and so when they arrive after doing 10 weeks online, they show up on day one in the AEP program. They already have friends that they've made online. They already know me. They already know the teachers that will be teaching them in the classroom. They already know what the curriculum looks like because everything starts from the scope and sequence of AISM. So we use the scope and sequence to design all of our classes. So, and we do that we do that intentionally because we want to make sure that our students are learning the same things that the students in the mainstream are learning. Again, it's trying to create no barrier between what is being taught in EAL, what's being taught in the mainstream, or what's being taught in AEP and what's being taught in the mainstream. We're trying to shorten that distance and create authentic learning experiences. So it starts with online, 10 weeks there, and then it's the AEP program is a maximum 1-year program. And so we are working towards improving the academic English proficiency of our students, measured by the SLATE test, measured by our weekly emails home using the RAG rating, measured by teacher recommendation. If all those things are in alignment, then either at the end of the semester, 6 months, they can graduate, or at the end of the year, they can graduate. We've been very successful in the other programs that I've led in getting 50% of our students graduating in six months, 1 semester, and then 95% plus graduating in a year's time.
Yeah. 这个我就全部都听明白了啊！我觉得这个项目的设计对于我们从中国非英语母语国家的孩子来到这种全英文的需要英语达到母语水平的这样的一个课程体系里面，是一个特别强有力的生态支持。那我觉得学校其实考虑了很多比较确实可行的方案啊，比如说利用我们等 MOE 的这个时间做线上的准备，然后呢，我们进入到学校以后呢，学校有一个强大的课程体系来支持到孩子，然后呢，最终呢，我们的路径呢，可以申请到泰来教育集团旗下的，比如说我可以继续在 AISM， 就是澳大利亚国际，我可以继续在澳大利亚国际，我也可以再去申请花园，我们也可以继续申请 Nexus 和泰来的2所，其实给了孩子更多的一些可能性啊，大家就不用太纠结，说我这1年的过渡，我应该怎么样找到更好的方式，或者说我要不要去到别的学校去做这样的一个比较盲目的选择啊？我觉得这个项目其实听来是非常的有效，而且能够跟家长保持一个很有效的一个沟通和支持啊！我非常感谢Ian， 然后呢给我们提供了这样的一个好的课程啊！我觉得这个课程对于我们来说，应该是对我的家长们有很大很大的帮助。谢谢您，
谢谢您，
谢谢您，
谢谢，
谢谢。
OK，
好。
Thank you, UNM, for giving me this opportunity to introduce this program. I look forward to meeting you either live, face-to-face, and talk a little bit more about the program. Very excited to meet you, and thanks again for this opportunity.